Look like this Blade reboot ain't making the cut.
Now available in paperback and Kindle, vampires stalk the darkness of the Eternal Night. Get your copy of Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com.
The Marvel Studios reboot of Blade continues to languish in development hell. Now, the first Blade, made in 1998 starring Wesley Snipes, was the film that basically revived the entire superhero movie genre after the complete failure of Batman and Robin at the box office in 1997, and is the reason why we have gone on to see superhero movies like the X-Men movie franchise, the Spider-Man Sam Raimi movie franchise, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, with the reboot of Blade having problems, this could symbolically be the bookend as related to the entire superhero movie genre if the producers cannot get this film to be able to go right. And sadly, the producers of Blade seems like they cannot get a screenplay together that satisfies actor Marshala Ali, who was cast as Blade, because he's currently not happy with this second script that the studio has commissioned. Now, a couple of years ago, Marvel Studios commissioned a black woman to write a script for their Blade reboot. However, as this script, rumors of it got leaked, it was said to be extremely mediocre, and it said that it only had 2 lackluster action sequences. And because this script allegedly had 2 lackluster action sequences and had a very weak story, the Marvel Studios basically shut down production of the Blade film in order to hire another screenwriter to go out here and write a brand new screenplay. Unfortunately, it seems like actor Marshala Ali isn't happy with this screenplay, and this is leading to this film winding up continuing to languish in development hell. And I don't believe that this film will be very good, because if you're having problems with the screenplay in the beginning, that means that you're going to have an extremely terrible product at the end of the day. As someone who has been studying the entertainment industry for the last 25 years, I can tell you, when there are problems with a screenplay, you're basically going to get an absolutely terrible movie at the end of the day. Because, like a car painter, everything starts with the prep on the screenplay, and in order to get a quality finished product, the screenwriter has to prepare to develop a quality script before they put fingers to the keyboard. And the big problem I'm seeing with the Blade reboot is that Kevin Feige went out here and announced this project, not ever thinking about how it would synergize organically with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and not really thinking critically about how Blade's story would fit into the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe. No, what he just wanted to do was go out here and try to top Wesley Snipes' 1998 classic film with a remake that he thought would get easy box office. Unfortunately, you need the right kind of screenwriter to write a horror action movie like Blade was, and it looks like to me that the Marvel Cinematic Universe screenwriters, they lack the craft and ability to go out here and make a vampire action horror film. Because horror is a completely different genre than a superhero film, and while Blade was technically a superhero film, it was actually a horror action movie, and that type of film requires a different kind of writer, and it also requires a writer to be able to work within the parameters of an R rating. One of the things I believe that is hampering the Blade reboot is the fact that Marvel Studios wants to do a PG-13 Blade movie, because doing a PG-13 Blade movie, that really does not fit the character organically, because the character is called Blade, and he goes out here and he's carrying a samurai sword to go out here and take down the vampires. So this character needs an R rating for all of the blood and the violence that are associated with horror movies, and Marvel Studios basically hampered their screenwriter from minute one by making the film, announcing it being PG-13. Now, according to some reports, this film is being made PG-13 because it's not really a Blade movie. No, like many other Marvel Studios films that have come out recently, it is one of these what are alleged to be a bait and switch, where we're going to go from seeing Blade in action to the film transitioning over to another new character which they're trying to create, which is the daughter of Blade. And what they want to do with the daughter of Blade is make a character who will fit the social justice identity politics that former Marvel executive Victoria Alonso was pushing in many of the Phase 4 Marvel Studios movies. And what she wanted to do was go out here and present this black female version of a vampire hunter, which is Blade's daughter, as the one who takes over the mantle of Blade. And if this is the plan for both of these scripts, this film is basically going to be a cinematic disaster, because what most comic fans want to see is a action-packed vampire movie with lots of blood and gore, because in the horror genre, you cannot have a film with only 2 action sequences. I know this from experience writing many vampire stories like Isis Night of the Vampires, Isis Bride of Dracula, Isis Escape from Transylvania, and the vampire novel I did, Eternal Night. When you're doing a vampire story, yeah, you're going to have to start going out here and amping things up as related to the violence, because vampires are a very violent bunch of characters, and in order to do an effective vampire novel, you're going to have lots of blood and gore, and you're going to have lots of action sequences, because I know when I was writing Eternal Night, I had about 10, 12 action sequences in that book, and I was visualizing it like a movie, and I made sure that there were plenty of sequences to show how these vampires live. I mean, it was not something with a whole bunch of expository sequences. It was wall-to-wall action, and the same thing with my other vampire novels that I do for younger audiences, like Bride of Dracula. While there wasn't much gore in that story, there was a lot of action. And the same thing with Escape from Transylvania and Night of the Vampires. I always made sure that there was action, because if there's no action, there's no reason to care. And you can't come in here and sit down and say, oh, we're going to make a vampire movie that's PG-13. No, that's not going to work as related to a vampire movie. No, vampire movies are hard R. And if the big problem with the MCU, as I see it, is they're trying to go out here and make a film that just doesn't fit organically into the MCU. And one of the things that really has me concerned about this film is the fact that they're sitting there saying, oh, Blade doesn't have his own sword like he had in the 1998 movie. Now, the sword that Blade had in 1998 was almost a character in and of itself. I remember the opening scene where the vampire tries to steal Blade's samurai sword, and the sword has a timer on it that releases spikes. And what the Marvel Cinematic Universe wants to do is try to tie Blade's sword to the ebony blade that the Black Knight carries, and that doesn't really flow organically into the character. No, the Black Knight's ebony blade is distinct to him. It is distinct to his family, and what the Marvel Studios wants to do is, in their adaptation, deviate from the source material, and that's a major red flag for me as related to this Blade reboot, because again, Blade's sword is unique and distinct to him. It was crafted by Whistler to help him go out here and fight the undead, and the ebony blade in and of itself is a completely different sword with a completely different mythology. And what Marvel Studios is looking to do is the same thing that they did with MODOK in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, What they want to do is try to make their own story. And if they do this story where they allegedly go out here and make the ebony blade sword, they're going to fail miserably, because longtime comic fans like myself, we know the difference between an ebony blade and blade sword, and we know what made blade sword cool was that it was unique and distinct to Wesley Snipes. It was unique and distinct to him and his interest in the martial arts. That's why it's a samurai sword, because Wesley Snipes was a black belt as related to martial arts, and he was skilled at using many martial arts weapons. So when Wesley Snipes went out here and adapted his version of Blade, it made his sword special. And to give him the ebony blade and say that the ebony blade kills vampires is diametrically opposed to what the ebony blade is about, because the ebony blade is a cursed sword and it corrupts whoever uses it. So whoever is writing the screenplay, while they're trying to tie things into Eternals, which is already a flop movie, they're hampering this whole Blade reboot, which is looking more and more like an unmitigated disaster, because people are saying that this Blade reboot basically reads like Underworld. And if that's the case, then they should have just gone out here and hired Kevin Grievous to go out here and write the screenplay, because if you're going to rip off Kevin Grievous, then you need to pay him for his long, hard work on Underworld, not just try to undermine him by making a knockoff where everybody can basically see that this is a Kevin Grievous story and characters, basically trying to cut and paste it into Blade. And again, Blade is his own character, and his character is not being respected as I'm seeing it. And that's possibly one of the reasons why Marshala Ali is upset about this script, because this script really is not one that is being put together very well. And it would never be put together very well, because it looks like to me Marvel Studios is trying to rush out a script, because a good screenplay takes a good 1 year to do a first draft. I know this from working on scripts like All About Marilyn and All About Nikki. In order to get a script on point, you need to refine that script. And when I'm looking at Marvel Studios, they're rushing and scrambling as related to these scripts, and they're rushing and scrambling to go out here and get scripts out as related to Blade. But it's clear to me that it's their process that's the problem, and their process is a problem because they're not really taking the time to do their preparation as related to putting fingers to the keyboard. They're not taking the time to go out here and do their research on these characters. They're not taking the time to go out here and craft a story. No, they're not taking their time, and because they're not taking their time, it's not looking like they're making a quality version of Blade. No, they're spending good money after bad, because you commissioned a script by this black woman who you hired basically for identity politics. And when you hired this woman for identity politics to say you hired a black woman, she created a script that was so bad that it frustrated the director, and he decided to quit. And Marshala Ali is at his wit's end, because he wants this version of Blade to be top quality. Unfortunately, they have not taken the time to go out here and make a top quality movie. No, what they want to do is go out here and try to do the usual bait and switch. And that bait and switch is not really getting over very well as related to the story, because most people, we don't want to see the daughter of Blade. No, we want to see Blade, the vampire hunter, who had become an iconic character due to Wesley Snipes' brilliant performance. I mean, if you're going to take an Oscar winner like Marshala Ali and have him play Blade, he's not supposed to be a background character. He needs to be the center focus. And that's what has him frustrated, because he came on to this Blade project believing that he would be the center focus of a Blade movie. He believed that he would be the star on a level of Wesley Snipes. And what Marvel Studios is doing with its just absolutely bad approach to writing is they're trying to go out here and, as I see it, polish a turd as related to these screenplays, because they're approaching these screenplays from the wrong perspective, because what they want to do is create a female vampire hunter, And that was already done with Kendra in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I've done it myself with Lilith Graves in Eternal Night. And again, you have to know how to write a character if you're going to do a vampire story, and it's clear to me that Marvel Studios is completely out of its depth, and that's why this Blade movie is struggling in development hell, and why this Blade movie is just not really coming to make the cut the way Wesley Snipes' 1998 film did back then over 25 years ago, because Wesley Snipes understood that an action movie that's supposed to be a horror film has to have those horror elements, and you can't go out here and sugarcoat and candy coat those elements to try to appeal to the PG-13 crowd. No, if you're going to make a Blade movie that makes the cut, then you're going to have to go out here and take a stab at some good writing. And again, I don't see the people at Marvel Studios it being in that place where they can go out here and make that kind of film, because again, if you don't know how to commission a screenplay that meets the source material, then clearly you're not qualified to work on this type of genre. But that's not stopping Marvel Studios from making a film that could possibly be the bookend that ends the superhero movie genre power after 30 years of dominance at the box office. When I look at this Blade movie, if this film were to go to production as part of Phase 5, what it could do is not only be the end of Phase 5, it could be the possible end of the superhero movie genre, and ironically be the bookend to the superhero movie genre, which was revived back in 1998 with Wesley Snipes' classic and iconic film, Blade. Now, if you want to pick up some of my horror novels like Eternal Night, Isis Bride of Dracula, Isis Night of the Vampires, and Isis Escape from Transylvania, you can find all of those stories in paperback and Kindle format, and you can also find them on digital platforms like Smashware's The iBook Store and Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos about comics, science fiction, and fantasy, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Bride of Dracula. The Goddess Next Door and John Haynes team up to take on the Dark Vampire in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Bride of Dracula in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available on Lulu. John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today.